So I had cancer. Yeah, it wasn't due to radon, don't worry, but... Oh, Paul, you can't be... It wasn't due to radon, I don't think. I actually had testicular cancer, which is pretty survivable, relatively, and I made it out more or less okay. And, you know, I got the part removed that leaned more to the right, so that kind of worked out, I guess. Even though my cancer wasn't caused by radon, probably, me having cancer means I'm probably more likely to get cancer in the future, whether that's due to, like, genetic factors or just staying in the same environment that produced the original cancer, whatever that might have been. But this isn't really about me. This is about radon. So what is radon? Well, radon is a noble gas, and if you remember from high school, noble gases don't really react with stuff. At least that's what I remember from high school, but radon actually does react with stuff. It's radioactive. Funny how that works. But it actually emits alpha particles. Now, you're probably more familiar with the beta or gamma or X-ray radiation, and those are all harmful too, but alpha radiation is harmful in a slightly different way. See, alpha particles don't really have as much energy behind them as like most other kinds of harmful radiation. So it's actually blocked by your skin. So it's normally not harmful unless you breathe it in. Lucky for us, radon is a gas, which we can breathe in. So when we do that, little particles of radon, which is like this heavier element relative to what's usually in the air, and the particles are a bit larger, it gets kind of stuck in your lungs, and like the lining, crevices, it has a name, but the little pockets of air sucking in your lungs, it gets stuck in there. They get stuck in there and then they kind of chill, and then they emit alpha particles just into your lungs, so you're just radioactive once you breathe it in. It's pretty cool. Once the radon particles are nice and embedded into your lung lining, it'll just kind of stay there and emit alpha radiation into your lungs. You're just gonna stay radioactive for a while. And it's just gonna cause cancer. And boy, does it cause cancer. Radon is actually the #2 cause of lung cancer in the US, behind smoking. And amongst non-smokers, it is by far the leading cause of lung cancer. And it's not a thing that ever really gets talked about because the problem isn't something that can be changed by a lifestyle adjustment. It's kind of just in our environment or in your workspace or whatever, and then you just kind of have to deal with it. And most people are kind of powerless to change their situation or even know what's going on in terms of radiation levels, especially alpha particle radiation levels, which we'll get into why those are so hard to measure later on in the video. There may be a silver lining to this though. If you remember from like high school, there's a half-life to radioactive particles. This half-life is basically how long it takes for half of the radioactive material to decay inside of a substance and not be radioactive anymore. Now, for thorium and uranium and plutonium and the stuff they use in like nuclear reactors, their half-life is like millions, billions of years. So they're basically just gonna stay harmful and radioactive for forever. Radon isn't like this though. Radon has a half-life of 3.8 days. So it only, like, you go into a radon infested area, you breathe in some radon, you capture it in your lungs, and then you leave. Well, you're only gonna stay radioactive for, you know, about 4 days, and then it will decay. Well, what do you think radon decays into? You think it maybe decays into water? Or maybe iron, or calcium or something? No. It decays into lead. Radon, once it's done being radioactive, is now lead. Sometimes it goes into other things that also decay quickly, but it ends up as lead eventually. You know, you get the collective damage to your lungs from all the radiation, and then you're also just getting small doses of lead that just kind of stick around in your body forever that also are just going to cause lifetime issues accumulatively. It's a cool situation we're in, honestly. Come with me on a journey. Recently, I moved here. This is a map of Colorado. I don't know if that was a necessary visual, but the previous owners of this underground bunker that I'm currently living in left a big map of Colorado that looks like it's from like the 50s or 40s. It's really old. And it's pretty cool. I don't really know what to do with it. I think it's covering up a lot of structural damage to this bunker. Anyways, yeah, I recently moved to Colorado, and the cool thing about Colorado as a state, and like a lot of the rest of the US, is that their primary industry used to be mining and factories. Some of these are still operational, but most of them have been abandoned. And I'm going to tell a little bit of a story. So before I moved here, I used to live in Texas. And I was making a trip to Trinidad, Colorado, which is on like the southern border. It's like the closest area of Colorado that's like that you can drive to from Texas. And I was just going there to look at the mountains and absolutely nothing else. I was there, and I had arrived early before all of the supply shops could open. So I decided to drive around, and there's only a few roads leading out of Trinidad, so I just picked one, and I started driving. I was driving, and I found this like little convenience shop, and I went in there, and it was just ran by these two like middle-aged older ladies. So they were telling me they were going to close off that whole area, and even up to the shop I think was going to get closed down eventually, and they were going to close the road because they didn't want to have to maintain the road, and they didn't want to have to like make that a publicly accessible area. That's a lot of Colorado. Just whole mining areas that popped up in the golden ages of the gold rush or whatever. I don't know, I wasn't there. And then, they just kind of stopped being profitable. So yeah, when all these factories and towns closed up, some people stuck around, but most people left to the cities or to another factory town that was still operational or something. Like, there's a lot of areas of Colorado that just have hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars worth of mining equipment just kind of sitting there, rotting, rusting, seeping chemicals into the environment. And the cool thing about Colorado is that it's on a mountain, so all of the water supplies are kind of connected, centralized at the Colorado River, is my understanding of it as someone who hasn't lived here their entire life. And because of that, all of the equipment and everything around here just kind of gets dumped into the Colorado River eventually. If it's around here, it probably will. So that brings me to my bunker that I live at. So I live at this bunker, and this bunker has running water. It's right next to a river. It's like on a hill that's by a river. And that river happens to be downstream from an abandoned steel factory or coal factory. I don't know, probably several factories. I live in a very factory-heavy area. But basically, there was a factory that operated in the 70s, processing coal and turning it into like, I don't know what you do with coal, man, but they basically had a bunch of slag, which is like slightly radioactive, like byproduct of processing coal that they were probably gonna do something with eventually, I'm sure, but they went under, and they were like, oh man, we have all this super toxic, super radioactive material. What do we do with that? Well, in the case of the factories that closed up shop near my living location, they just left it there. They were like, not my problem, we're not even a company anymore. And then they just bounced. I mean, the people who owned the factory probably didn't even live in Colorado, and if they did, they certainly didn't live anywhere near these factories. So it's not really their problem, and they just go on to run another company and make it profitable at the expense of the public. It would be really cool and awesome if the executives and the people in charge that are responsible for poisoning the entire populations of given areas with their negligence and whatnot. It would be cool if they saw any amount of repercussions for what they did. But this is America, and that has almost no chance of happening, and it really wouldn't even fix anything. But there is a problem that really needs fixing, and of course this problem has disproportionately affected poorer areas and areas with marginalized populations, as these things tend to do, basically 100% of the time. So yeah, the cool thing about the slag pile that's near me is that it's not just like, it's just slowly emitting radon and emitting things that will decay into radon, just constantly. It's flowing down the water supply. So what happens when all this radon is in the river is it kind of taints the surrounding dirt and soil around the river, and it kind of keeps spreading out. And that's what happened to the soil near my bunker. It is just contaminated with radon. So if there's like cracks in the foundation, which there totally is a lot of cracks because I'm on the side of a hill and it like moves around a lot. So it just kind of seeps in through these cracks in your foundation, in my foundation, and I'm just getting radon. Here is the office radon, which is like the next room over from where I'm filming. That's what it looks like. I don't know if I can focus on this. And this isn't new. This isn't abnormal for me. Here is my readings over the past year. If you notice, it used to be a lot lower. For me, it tends to cycle, like in the summer, it's not that bad. It's only like double what the recommended, like you should get work done to not have this happen to your living situation. I'm only double that normally, but right now I'm like 7 or 8 times that at least. And when I first moved into this bunker here, it was 15 to 20 times where they're like, you need work done on your place. So what does that work done look like? I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here. So for me, getting the foundational work to get this radon mitigation system installed is prohibitively expensive. I mean, I had to spend every penny I had practically to even afford this bunker, and that was before the interest rate hikes. There's no way I could have afforded this now. But yeah, so I can't afford to have a big hole put in my foundation, and that's even if I could find somebody. There's one company near me that said that they can install these radon mitigation systems, and they charged, they quoted me like a lot, like $2 to $3 grand, which, you know, depending on your perspective, maybe isn't that bad. They inspected the area. They were like, this is where we're going to install it. They're like, this is the size hole and the fan we're going to get. And they're like, we're going to put a hole in the wall for the pipe to go out. So yeah, it was basically like there's going to be a hole in the floor, and then a pipe was going to be going out of the floor and then out the wall. So it's going to be sucking air out from under the house, up through the house, and then out like the top of the first floor. Some time went on. I tried getting a hold of them. They kind of ghosted me, and then they called me and they were like, yeah, so we're just going to have to cancel this. We're booked for the next like 2 years now, which was cool because he was already booked for me, but I guess I just didn't have enough money or something. I don't know. But that was the only company nearby that could actually professionally do that for me, and now they're booked. So I either have to like find some handymen somewhere and let them like drill holes into the foundation of my bunker, or do it myself. I'm not a handyman. I mean, I have become one in recent years, but I don't trust myself to drill a hole into concrete. If I mess it up, that's life ruining. That is legitimately life ruining. If I destroy the foundation, like, I can't afford that, like financially or like emotionally or anything. So I just get to deal with the radon, I guess. I don't really know what to do at this point, if I'm being honest. And I know there's worse things to worry about, I guess. But this really, I already had cancer. I don't want to get it again. I really don't. And I'm kind of stuck in this situation. And I'm bringing this up because, like, you might be in this situation too, and you'd have no idea. Like, how would you know? Radon is odorless, it's tasteless, it's colorless. Like, you would really have no idea you have radon unless you get a radon detector. Thank you. I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but so I moved from Texas, and I used to live in the Dallas area, and they would have so many giant billboards for like anti-abortion or like this political person or like legal people. They still have a lot of legal billboards around where I live. But the most common billboard I see in my small city is cancer center billboards. There's a pretty big cancer center where I live, and they advertise a lot, like a weird amount. Because it's like, if you have cancer and you live in this area, you don't have anywhere else to go. You're gonna go to them to get your cancer treatment. So why do they need to advertise? Like, it's just so people think about them and they're like, oh, I should go get scanned for cancer, which maybe that's cool. I don't know. I don't know why a hospital is advertising in the first place, because they should be state-ran and not for profit, but whatever, man. Now we're going to talk about detecting radon levels. Yay. More science, I guess. So as I alluded to earlier, radon is primarily alpha particles, which are different from beta and gamma particles, which are normally what Geiger counters measure. You know, those things that make the cool sounds. That's what those measure, not alpha particles. But there's not a lot of equipment that can detect them. As far as I can tell, this right here, at the time of making this video, is the only thing that can detect it in real time. And honestly, I don't even know if it can do that. I am just kind of assuming. I haven't looked into it because I can't really afford that. So this is an AirThings View Plus. I got it a couple years ago. Here's how much it costs right now. I got it because I needed a way to measure radon levels in a way where I could access the data. You see, with a lot of the radon detectors out there, They just display what the radon is on the device, and then that's it. You just have to look at the averages as projected on this little LCD screen right here. And you can't really look at historical data or anything like that. So Airthings is just about the only company that really lets you do that. And it's not perfect. I wish they let you easily use their devices without like connecting to the Airthings app, and like, because this can act like a hub, like a smart home hub for the other Airthings devices, and then this connects to Wi-Fi and then connects to their servers, and then in Home Assistant, which is what I use for my smart home, I like connect to my Airthings account and then pull the data from Airthings. But they have all of the information about the air quality in my house, which I don't necessarily want them to have, but it doesn't really matter all that much because they're the only game in town when it comes to measuring radon levels. And here's some graphs from mine, in case you were wondering how bad it is where I live. And for the people who are going to come into the comments and be like, just move, bro, just don't live there, just move somewhere else. How? So yeah, Airthings is kind of the only game in town when it comes to measuring alpha particles, and I don't really know why that is. Like, if you want to measure any other metric in your air quality, like your CO2 levels or your particulate measurements or like your humidity, temperature, any of that, you can find a very cheap little computer board that will measure that for you, and you can set it up and connect it to Home Assistant, whatever. But for whatever reason, when it comes to detecting radon, it's way more expensive, way more involved. The technology isn't out there as much, and you just have to spend more money. And that's really what you're going to have to do, unless you know someone else who's going to let you borrow one of these for a week. Like, what else are you going to do? You have to just buy one and put one in your house. Otherwise, you'll have no idea, and it could be taking years, decades off of your life. Like, what if this causes cancer and takes you out in your 40s? Then like this, buying something like this could be like a no-brainer, but like you have no idea. You'd have no idea if your house even needs that. So I wish it was more common to just buy devices like this, install them, check them out, see what your radon levels are like, and then like once you got your radon under control, maybe leave 1 meter in your house if you bought multiple, and then pass them on to your friends and let them see if they have radon in their house. I really don't know what the solution is on like a widespread level, on like a policy level. That's not really what I'm here to talk about. I'm just here to talk about what you personally can do. So let's say you went out and you bought one of these radon detectors, you left it up for a week, and it turns out that your radon levels are elevated. Well, first of all, you should look up what that actually means. So there's 2 different measurements for radon. There's like metric and US, because of course there is. So when you get your measurement, make sure you get the unit and then look up what like concernable levels of radon are. It's going to be hard because any website you go to is going to be like, there are no safe levels of radon, which, you know, technically true, but what people are really knowing is how bad does it have to be before I drop $2,000 on a contractor to put a hole in my house. So yeah, you really need to get a detector and see what your radon levels are. So let's say you got one and you know that your levels are elevated. So what do you do about that? Well, there's a few things. First of all, if you have the means, if you have the layout that really lets you do this, go to the bottom floor in your living area, rip up the carpet, like pull it off of the concrete floor, and then use, I recommend slab. It's from Sashco. I'm not a contractor, so like don't take my word for it like I know what I'm talking about, but like, I don't know, I did a lot of research when I was trying to fix my foundation, and pretty universally people said slab is the way to go, so that's what I used. I bought a big pallet of it on Amazon and then just went around and filled cracks in the floor. I sure didn't get all of it. It's cool, there's like a big crack running right underneath some cabinets, so I'm gonna need to like rip up all of the cabinets to get to that crack. Cool situation. But yeah, basically fill every crack that you can. That's really what I'm getting at. Fill every crack in the floor that you can with some slab. And then once you do that, if you still notice elevated levels that really didn't do what you wanted it to, crack a window. I know it sounds kind of dumb, but seriously, crack a window a little bit. Go find a room in the house where you don't really care if it's like hotter or colder than the rest of the house, right? And then just crack the window just a little bit. As a side note, if you're gonna just leave a window cracked, you could set up a Raspberry Pi with a little microphone and install Bird Pi. which will use machine learning to identify birds near your house, and then you can submit it to a big network of bird tracking, so you can see, you can help contribute to like ecological patterns and stuff, and like you can know what the bird health is in your area. It's pretty cool. I'd recommend it if you're going to do this anyway. So yeah, just crack a window and leave it cracked, as small amount as possible, but you'll probably notice once you crack it a little bit that there's air coming in, which is because you have like negative pressure in your house that's sucking air in. Also, something you may not consider, if you have a dryer, like a clothes dryer, and it's not one of the fancy heat pump ones, it's blowing air out of your house. Like, it's drying your clothes and it's taking that humid air and shoving it out the vent. And not only is this like, you know, taking all of this nice conditioned air out of your house, so then you have to like heat or cool it, it also creates a huge negative pressure in your house, which then has to be absolved by sucking air in from somewhere, probably the cracks in your foundation. Basically, if you're running your dryer, definitely have a window open. Same with your like dryer vent. Like if your bathroom has a vent, same deal. It's just blowing air out of your house. So like what I do when I shower, instead of leaving the vent on, normally I just crack the door a little bit, and that kind of takes care of the humidity, and it doesn't make me have to run the vent. And also I live in a dry area, so it helps with the humidity of the house in general, just having that like open like that. So yeah, just be kind of cognizant of air pressure. Anything that you do that kind of forces air out of your house, you have to replenish that somehow. And ideally, it should be from like a window and not from your foundation. So that is one of the biggest things I can really say on what you can do about radon. Here's something that I don't really have concrete evidence on. I'll look it up more as I'm editing this video, but I like to take fans and put them on top of little houses made from air filters. This setup has a name. It was discovered by some professor somewhere, and there's been like different variations on its design. Basically, you get some air filters and tape them together and stick a fan on it, and it really does wonders with your air quality. This will clear up most pollutants in your air, but on that note, if you have a central air system, instead of having your vent set to auto, you should have it set to always on. This will keep air circulating throughout your house. It will make sure radon isn't super concentrated in one area. It'll make sure that like the air filter is constantly picking stuff up out of the air. I would highly recommend you leave your central air system set to on instead of auto, if that applies to you. So here's the cool thing, right? I'm doing all of this. I filled all the cracks in my house. I filled the cracks in my walls. I tried to get a radon mitigation system installed, and that fell through. I keep this window open 24/7, and my radon levels are still really bad. Now, why they go up so much in the winter, I don't know. I have a feeling that there are radioactive elements to natural gas, because I use natural gas to heat my my bunker, at least for now, until I can afford a good heat pump. But yeah, natural gas, I don't know, I think it has radon in it. So some more radon fun facts for you. Radon kind of gets into everything. The water that you drink could very well be radioactive. Where I live in Colorado, radioactive elements are the #1 contaminant in our drinking water. I have a reverse osmosis water system in my house, and I hope that takes care of that. I hope. I don't know. I don't really have a way to measure the radioactivity of my water. And you don't either, probably. Radon is just a very big problem that I don't think anyone is talking about. I've brought up the problem of radon with friends of mine, and they don't know what it is very often. Like some people have heard of it, some people don't know what it is and think I'm talking about like something entirely different. It's a very unknown problem, but it's a huge problem, and I don't know why this information isn't more widespread. I don't really have a major point to this video. I'm just trying to raise awareness of this, and like, I don't know. I think that there's a lot of people who are getting cooked in their own home, and they have no idea, and it would be cool if they knew that. It would be cool if they knew. When I bought this bunker, when I was searching for potential places to live at, the mention of radon was not anywhere in my I got like a 100-page inspection about the place I bought. Nowhere is radon mentioned anywhere in that. I installed Home Assistant, and I set up Home Assistant, and I was just like, man, I want to monitor every element of my air. I want to know all the data, just because I'm a nerd and I just wanted to look at graphs like that. And that's the only reason I knew about all this. Like, I was like, oh, I can measure radon? That seems cool. And then I went down this rabbit hole. Like, how are normal people supposed to know about this? I guess spread this around. I don't know. Just tell people in your life about radon. Let them know that they could be dying. If you notice there's like a lot of cancer in a given area, maybe buy some of these air things, or like if there are cheaper alternatives, maybe buy those. If you're fine with just having an LCD reading, buy one of the cheaper radon meters. Just knowledge is power, and I don't have a solution to this. I hope you learned something from watching. Have a good one.